I know what's wrong. Testing. Aha! Shoot. Thank you very much. Okay, so starting back at the beginning here. We're on part 3 of me building a talent selector system, which is a RPG style system where players could pick talents as they progress through a game. We have a specific game in mind that we're going to use it for, but it's just going to be fairly generally usable and adaptable for other games. This is what we have done so far is we've built, there's a structure here that will be a template eventually that gets shared. It has a talent tree group inside of it, talent trees group that you can say how big, how wide and tall each tree is in number of talents. You can make one group per tree you want, and then each talent inside of it has a bunch of properties on it, including its template that it will spawn for the player. There is some state tracking. If I hit play and then tab to pause, you'll see that there are now 2 things in here. One keeps track of how many talent points the player has. One keeps track of exactly which talents they have within a certain talent tree. If we had multiple talent trees, which we eventually will, you'll have one of these per tree. So you can have as many as, 6 or 8 of these per player, but that's not too unmanageable. Then we are working on the UI itself. So we're going to build up at the start of the game, build up the entire UI system. It's on the client, right? So when a client joins, they construct their own. It reads the trees, it figures out what to display, and then it hides it and shows it when the player needs it. So that is done by, there's a panel here that it is a scroll panel, which is super useful because you can scroll and put more things on it than fit, so you can have tall talent trees, and a background image. Eventually I'll want a name on these as well. Then there's a 3 image thing that we're going to use to make arrows between them to show requirements. You have to take this talent to take this talent. And then there's a talent button, which is a button and 2 images. It's kind of hard to tell because it's up in the corner, but the way we set this up last time is that it has a nice frame around it. Actually, let's see if I hide this guy. That makes it. It's an icon. This is a ship icon. It's the corner of it, inside of a red background and a slight border on it. We'll have those for every single talent. Each talent within here has an icon color and icons. We'll set those. You can mouse over them. They'll do the things. They'll show this tooltip. There's only one tooltip, so we didn't have to put it in a template because you can never mouse over multiple things at the same time. And we are going to hook up all this UI today, or as much as we can. All right, so first thing we're going to do, we're actually constructing these things, which is at initialization time. I don't even need, some people like having a knit function or something that they call right away. I'm just going to put it at the bottom of the script. If it gets unwieldy or I need to iterate through some things, I might construct some functions, but for now we're just going to run with it and see how it is. So spawn tree template per tree. Okay, so the first thing we did, we have this utility script that is shared and knows how to read these trees. So we initialize talent tree data doing this, and it does everything it needs to, and now we can use these shared functions to get data about it. What do we have here? Sorry, let me crunch down some of these with code folding. All right, now this is a little more readable. So we can get the 2 state helpers. We can find out how many talent points a player has, or which we'll need to display eventually, and how many, which exact talents they have, which we'll also need to use to change how this is displayed. And then we initialize, we did that. We just got the whole table, which might be what we have to do here. Does player have talent? That is actually more helpful than all the other pieces. Want to know if player has that talent? Great. And we're going to try to add the talent. That's server only, we won't do that yet. The buttons will send an event or something. We'll get there eventually. Player talent points, same deal. Remove player talent points, get player talent points. Okay. So what we need here, does player have talent? We need to read through the table to know what things to display. So this is going through, that's, yep, getting the whole table. Let's see how we iterate through that in other functions here and make sure we have this consistent variable names. Let's see what this function does. Not that one. Read talent tree definition. That one. Tree group. Dot name. Tree name. And tree data. Okay, so this is tree data. And tree name we will need eventually. Like I said, we haven't added that yet. Maybe we should add that now. It seems obvious that it will be needed. So we're going to add a text element here. Instance this guy, put it in here. Oops, I missed. So when you drag UI elements in, they often construct containers because they need that to be displayed at all. Sometimes you have them left behind if you kind of don't drag them into a container already. Let's see. If I set this to 0 position, make the text black. Okay, the question is, was it on top of the image or not? The order in the hierarchy actually matters for UI stuff. I want to do top center. I want to center aligned text. Talent tree. This is just so when you're positioning this or looking at this, you know what it is. It will be changed by the script. If the size is 20, then the height of about 40 is correct. It's not quite 2 to 1, but for now, that's what you have to do. I'm going to say in parent width is going to be the entire width of the thing. And don't wrap text. If it wrapped down over the talent, it would look really bad. We do want to clip text. We don't want it to go off the side. Okay. And this itself needs tree name text. Needs a reference to that. Okay. So for each tree, we need to spawn one of these and put it in the right spot. So this is a talent tree panel template. Local tree panel. Oops, that's not what I want. World.spawn asset. There's a question that I haven't even thought about, and so I'm going to sit here and think about it now, which is which of these things do I need to store into some sort of data locally so I can change them later? You know, is it possible I need to change the buttons? Yes, I need to be able to disable and enable the buttons as things change. That makes sense. Do I need to store the requirement arrows? No, those are never changing. They're just static. Each talent requires another talent. That's that. Do I need to store the panels themselves? The way it's set up now, no, they will never move. You're not going to have, you know, however many you have is how many fit on the screen. They're static where they are. You can scroll them up and down, but that's hidden from us. The images and the names don't change, so we don't need to store these at all. Except for that we need them to put all the other things on, right? Though maybe that doesn't matter. Yes, no, it does matter, right? Everything else has to be chilled into these so that they scroll up and down. So we will, I guess we'll do that inside this function. All right, so there's our tree panel. We spawned one. And I actually should give it a parent, right? There is a, did I have a reference here? UI container, I don't have a reference. So I reference the tooltip panel. And tool description, cost, and required all the pieces in the tooltip. Great. You might argue that I should put those references in there. Whatever. Group talent trees and things. Okay, I don't have reference to the container, which I need. I can just drag that in here. Move it up above the tooltip slightly. If I call it UI container is actually just fine because that's really what it is. It's the container for all the UI here. Okay, so in which case we're going to set its parent right in the spawn call. It's a little bit wider. All right, we've got a tree panel. And now we need to, yes, do we know how many, before we even do that, we need to know how many trees there are, because in order to position them, we have to make them look nice, right? If there's only one tree, you want it nice and center. If there's 3 trees, you want the first one on the left. So we're going to iterate through this twice, which is a little bit awkward, but whatever. Because these are not, it's not an array. The indexes are not integers. I can't just use the Lua's pound operator to find out how big it is. The indices are actually the names of the tables. So talent tree table that. We're gonna use it twice, even though this function just literally returns another table and it's not slow. I'm just gonna do that to make this read a little easier. Copy this one. Local n talent trees. Here. In fact, I don't even care what those are. I just want to know how big that is. Okay. So now we know how many talent trees there are. Alright, I could make this a... make these constants. It's a little bit weird to have a constant that points to the constant in the other tree, or in the other file, when really there's two references to the same thing. Maybe that's okay. I try to be consistent about, I really try to be consistent about naming things, and in this case, these things are definitely constant from the point of view of later code. You know, they are read from when you start the game, and then they stay the same forever. All right, so now we know how many there are. All right, so we need to find a way to neatly position things on the screen. I'm going to do a little bit of a, there's a chat placeholder here. You can't move that currently, so I need to know where that is. So I'm going to take a text box or whatever, drag it in here and put it right there to line up. X offset 495. Okay, so 500 is about my minimum. If I go all the way to the right side, what you're going to find is it's almost 1920. The way the UI system in this works is that it pretends your screen is 1080p and just scales it. Outside the editor is kind of hard to get other aspect ratios. Inside the editor, it's not too hard. You'll see I can get way over here to 3000, but the bottom is still going to be 1080, right? The corner there, 1080-ish. Looking at the properties panel. I believe, I'm actually not sure what it does in the, if you run the game at different resolutions. My monitors are these shapes, so I can't really test it easily. But we're putting these center biased, right? The this panel that we're spawning anchors by the center. So 0, 0 is going to put it dead center, and then we're going to go left and right, and we're going to assume that the person's screen is 1920 by 1080, or equivalent, a 16:9 ratio. And if they have a really wide screen, what happens is there'll just be more space on the sides, which is how those screens tend to end up in games anyway. Games don't, people who write games don't want to try every single resolution unless they're developing for mobile, where there are more varied screens. There are very few screens that are less wide than that. Those are how old CRTs used to be, but it really is not a thing these days at all. So I've got 500 pixels on the side that I can't use out of 1920. I want symmetrical, so there's 500 on the right side I can't really use. Look a little funny to be off-center. Which means we have 920 in the middle, which hopefully is enough. We might end up doing something just overriding chat. We'll see how this looks in a minute. And question is, how wide should these things be? How good? What is a good size? What restraints do we like? We don't have enough constants right now. Or that's not the word. We don't have enough data right now. We have too many variables. We could pick different things. We make the actual ability icons very large. We can make them very small. And we don't want them to be square. We want them to have some space in between them. We want the trees to have a little spacing around them. That sort of thing. If I draw a terrible, terrible diagram in my favorite paint program, let's make this skinnier. All right, I've got a box. I've got a little box, a little box, a little box. These are almost what I'm looking for. I've got another box. Okay. Basically, I want I do this a lot. Where I change colors. It's almost as if this program wasn't particularly well, written or whatever. Okay. So I want this distance, and this distance, and this distance, and this distance all be the same. I think that'll look good. I think if the inner icon distance and the border distance were different, it would look kind of different, look kind of off. Maybe we find that we actually want a little bit extra space in there. I don't know how much the scroll bar takes up, for example. We might have to figure that out. I haven't interacted with these before. In fact, we might be able to figure that out just by eyeing it a little bit the same as we did before. Let's get this guy in here. All right, so it goes quite a bit past that. So about 986 to 960. That's not much. 16 pixels maybe? Let's assume 16 for scroll bar for now. And what's more about that is we might not need the scroll bar. We're going to set the height of the panel or the things inside of it, I guess. I'm not sure how we control that. It looks like it takes up space on the inside, yes. When I select the scroll panel, the selectors are on the outside of it. I have not used the scroll panel before, so this is a little bit of an exploration for me. Yeah, so I want these to all be the same, not including the scroll bar. Then between the talent trees, we're trying to programmatically find something that looks nice. If a person makes a game that only has one talent tree, you put it dead center, you don't want it to be really fat and like they have to scroll down a whole far, really far and have these enormous icons. But if they, if they have 4 talent trees, you want them you could have the same distance between them, it would probably look good. In fact, I would say that's the minimum distance we want between talent trees is the same as this value. But then what if they have 2 talent trees? You don't want them rammed up against each other in the middle, you want them spread out a little bit. You could say that if we have our 2 borders on the edge of the screen, then we want these distances to be the same. I mean, obviously they're not hydra, but the outer distances should be the same. And if you only have like 2 trees, you might want the middle one to be the same too. But as you get more trees, we could just do that. We could always have these be the same and not have the there's this guy, not have this constraint at all. It still is not enough information for us. We need a maximum size for our talents themselves. And maybe we even just hard code the red to be half the size of a talent, for example. I think that would look pretty good. By eyeballing it, we can try it. So we will do a little bit of stagger here. Oops. Me telling myself, hey, that's 2 lengths wide. So button 2 lengths. And what is the maximum size of a button? Which would be the default size unless you have so many talent trees that it just doesn't fit and we have to smash them down a little bit. So the maximum size of a button, our buttons right now, this one in the corner seems about right. It's 100 pixels. Okay, I like that. You'll notice we only have 920 pixels in the middle, so 100 is going to take up a lot. If you have 3 trees, you've taken up basically the whole thing and not much else. So 50, 100, 50, 100, 50, 100, 50. You see this could take up a lot of space. And then we try to find the value for this orange length. If it is 0 or negative. I'll answer your question in a second, sorry. Let me finish the thought. If the orange is 0 or negative, then we say, okay, we need to scale in the buttons. Let's make them smaller. Let's make the whole thing smaller and see how we can fit it. And try to keep orange, I would say our orange minimum is probably the same as the red length. So in the worst case, we just have red lengths all over the place and just pick whatever value makes it fit and just jam everything in and make it small. I don't think these panels support horizontal scrolling, so I want it to all fit. And talent trees tend to be long, like tall and not wide. So I think that'll be okay, especially for the use case I have in mind. But that being said, a scroll bar is not impossible to write in Lua. It's just a bunch of work. So it's something we could do if we needed, or maybe they do support it and I just don't know. Actually, I can maybe... Yeah, I think it's the size of the UI of this image that's bigger than the thing it's a child of that's making it do this. If I could do that, well, that actually still, okay. Well, let's try to make it too wide and see what it does. Nothing, yeah, okay, it's only a vertical scroll panel. Okay, I'm gonna reset this template. Oop. And go back to math. Island. So we're going to define some constants up here. Max button size was 100. And that is the one magic number here. The rest of it was ratios relative to each other that should be constants. I could define these in like button gap ratio of gap size to button size in tree gap ratio of minimum gap between trees to button size. So it's all relative. Okay. So I guess we don't even have to start doing this before we know how many trees there are. We can figure out the sizes. That's kind of convenient. Actually, we can do this right here. We also know, do we know? Tree width and height are not in the table themselves, but I need to know. I need to know tree width. I wonder. Haha, I have a funny idea. I'm going to rearrange this logic a little bit. Sorry, this is tangent. Server client test. Okay. What I'm going to do is put these right in the table itself. Rather than having a function to get it, when all it does is return that value, this guy right here, and then having an awkward pattern right in the table. Does that comment still fit? It does. So I can just access them. Player state group. I don't think it has to be in the table. I'm going to put out a separate line because of that. So then, we go to our find results. This guy, we don't need to do that anymore. In fact, now that it's just an accessing a variable, I feel pretty okay not turning it into a variable. And then on the server, we do it twice. Let's see, we want that right there. And our test script, we have to update anyway, or else it will stop working. Simple enough. Okay, so hopefully now we can use this value right here for what we're doing. All right. So the diagram I just drew in Paint, we basically need to say, how wide is one talent tree? It is the number of buttons times the button width plus the number of buttons plus 1 times this ratio times the button width. So we'll see that first. Local tree width equals, this is unfortunate variable naming, because this is actually the width in UI space, and this is the number of how much wide it is, times max button size. we'll call this max tree width plus gap ratio times max button size is unfortunately a little bit ugly to read, but it will hopefully not be, be functional. Button size. This +1 is really what's killing me. Maybe I don't want this to be a ratio. Well, I kind of do. I was gonna say maybe I just want this to be a constant value and like scale it down. But the problem is I want all this to scale down together if things too big. Tree gap size. When my line of code is too long, I simply make it 2 lines of code. So that's our max tree width. And then we should make another constant here. Local max total width equals 920. Picked to be symmetrical and not overlap checked. Okay. Enter tree gap size equals that minus that times. So the max tree width times the number of talent trees. Take the total width, subtract that, and then we're going to divide it by the number of talent trees plus 1, because that's how many gaps there are between talent trees, right? If there's 2 talent trees, you got one on the left, one in the middle, one on the right. And that is our value. If this is greater than or equal to our gap size, then we're in good shape. Actually, we should do this the other way. Basically, we're saying we need some way to store this for when we actually construct the tree. So we're going to have a another variable here. Local tree scale equals 1.0. Okay. So if we invert this. So if it's big enough, we say great, we're done. We know how big the gap is between the trees, and we know how big the trees have a scale of 1. We use the maximum size, and we start constructing them down here. Great. If they are too small, now we need to figure out to scale them down. We're going to do some math, figure out the new tree scale, and then update this to be correct. And then we'll use these 2 values to actually construct the trees. So if it's too small, then we know we just need to pick whatever value we can to make this work. We're basically going down the entire thing. So full size equals I will explain in a second here. I made an assumption here. Well, that's right. This will work. I just need to fix the line up here. All right. So basically what I'm doing here is saying, all right, let's pretend we're not scaling at all. How big is the, and we want the gap between the trees to be the minimum gap it can be. How big is this thing? That's the full size. So the max tree width times the number of talent trees plus the number of talent trees plus 1 times the max button size times this ratio. All right, how big is it? It's pretty big, turns out. It's some amount bigger because that's what we just checked. If this were, assuming I did this correctly, if this is true, then this is guaranteed greater than 1, or greater than 920 rather. In which case, we're just going to divide those and figure out what our new ratio is. Oh, hit the wrong buttons. The thing I did wrong, by the way, is that right there. Nope, not you. The gap between the things should not be the button. Ratio should be the gap ratio. Okay. And for that, we have a new tree scale, and inter-tree gap size should be. Oops. Sometimes I do that by accident. I could say it's just. Sorry, I'm reading your comment again. Respond to that in a second. I could say that it's just. Yeah, well, we can just do this. We'll see how this looks. We're getting maybe some possible rounding errors here. And I believe a lot of the UI elements require integers, so we're going to have to do flooring to get these values into things it accepts, and we'll see how bad that looks. But we'll try it for now. Basically, just take our scale and multiply it by how big we think about the gap should be, which is that. X button size, gap ratio. All right. So use a constant should be like padding instead of gap ratio for shortness. All right. So there's two reasons I didn't do that. One is I have a below average, I guess an above average tolerance for long variable names. I think that I tend to value clarity over shortened typing a little bit. And admittedly, very long variable names take a while to read and that kind of thing, but I tend to prefer longer names. And the real reason is that padding implies it's a amount of pixels or a size, and it's not. The reason I call these ratios is because they're ratios on this value right here. So if I change this number, these also change. I could define this as 0.5 times this button and then call it padding or something like that. Maybe that's a better way to go. Actually, that seems much better because I'm multiplying it every time I use it. Thank you, I will do that. Button padding. Min tree padding. Oops. That's going to make this much more readable. Button gap ratio is what I called it before. No, I used it once, really. Sweet, all right. Min tree padding. Used 3 places. All right. It's conceivable this would fit in one line now. It totally does. Get you out of there. Not even close. Inter tree gap scale. All right, onward. So we now know our tree scale and our inner tree gap size, and hopefully, it's kind of a funny name for this. It's possible what you want, the way you want to scale this is to keep the gap constant, like literally just not scale that down and scale down the trees even more. But eventually, you could get to a point where if you just have too many trees, you can't render them at all. Maybe that's a bad place to be. Scaling down the whole thing seems okay, and putting them closer, it also might look nice when the sizes are aligned. I'll add a comment here. If at maximum, can be scaled down proportionally. Okay. Oh, we didn't even take into account the scroll bar, 16 pixels of scroll bar. Why don't we worry about that a little bit later. I'm gonna put a comment on my to-do list for this because scroll bar width. I don't actually know how this works, and in a lot of cases you won't need the scroll bar, and I don't know if that's a thing that I can, depending on how big I make the thing inside of it, maybe the scroll bar will just go away, maybe it won't. But if that's the thing I can do, then I don't want to have it there when I don't need it. So we'll just ignore it for now and let things not quite line up if that is how this shows up. All right, so we spawn tree panel, and the tree panel has, it's a panel itself, which has properties on it, and it's got two things underneath it. Just like this a little skinnier so we can read it. So this. All right, tree panel dot, we didn't even talk about the height on these things. Oof, that's probably just a constant. That's something we can do. Width, I believe that's probably not what it's called. It's probably called width. Let us check out everyone's favorite API. UI panel. Scroll panel is probably just a panel. Control width, height, XY, rotation. Simple enough. Okay. So somewhere in here, max tree width. Is actually what we want. Incidentally, got stored there. Useful enough. Local tree height. So that was 1080 tall. And we have, this looks about right, and it's 695, so we'll say 700, and just hope that makes sense for now. I try to, when working with UI, I try not to, like, if someone comes in here and it doesn't look too carefully at the code, hasn't seen me write every line, hasn't read every line, I don't want them to come in here and look at these properties and try to change them and have some of them do something and some of them not, which is unfortunately kind of an unfortunate, like a inevitable reality. But I try, like, if I was like, oh, the height we just inherit from here and the width will set as a design, that's pretty bad. I think having them in the same places is good, and it's just certain things that properties I don't touch at all I might leave, but it might be a whole section of properties, not like a width and height where I touch one of them. All right, so the Y offset is gotta be 0. It is 0 there, but I'm not gonna trust it to be 0. Actually working at that, looking at this guy, it does have a Y offset. Let's set it to 0 just to be sure, because we're gonna set the X anyway, same deal as before. And I believe these are integers. Let's see what that says. Number, it just says number. Thanks, Lua. That's an integer. Well, we'll see if it complains at me. It might give me errors when I do this because these are not integers, or this one might not be. Panel dot, so because they're center aligned, y dot 0 means it'll be exactly center. X equals, now this is the slight kicker. Tree name we actually do need, but we also need tree number. So if there's an odd number, the middle one gets exactly 0. If there is a even number, then there's not happens. We know how many trees there are. It's up here. And we know how wide a tree is, and we know how big the gap is between them. In fact, I don't think we even need this variable defined here. I think tree scale is all we need. Let's count this out for a second. So let me write down some. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is -2. the value we want out of this is that, which is just subtracting 3 from it, right? Because we'll multiply this number by the width of a tree plus the gap, and that is where it should be. I do not care about the order of iteration. I guess I do care, because this is going to put the trees in different places, maybe, depending on how it iterates. It doesn't really matter which trees in which place, except for it would be nice if they were constant. If you make a game that has exactly 3 trees, you don't want people to just get random order every time. That is something we could think about in the future. I think it's fine to ignore it for now and see how it comes out. It might be stable anyway, and it might, just given how Lua tends to iterate through tables, and it also just, that's something we can add later without having to add one extra layer right now. And if I have an even number, I want to just do that off by 1. So I want minus 1.5, minus 5, minus 0.5, plus 0.5, and 1.5. So I want to take the number, this is minus 1.5, this is minus 2. That's interesting. So that's minus 1 divided by 2. That's where we're starting with this. So 5 minus 1 is 4 divided by 2 is 2. 4 minus 1 is 3 divided by 2 is 1.5. That's how much I should subtract from our tree number. And that is how much I should multiply by that guy plus this guy. I can take out a set of parentheses there. Okay. It's kind of a mess, but it works. So this should get them in the right positions. We're scaling the whole thing down with plus the padding. If you have an odd number of talent trees, then the middle one, so you have 3 talent trees. The middle one, 3 minus 1 is 2, divided by 2 is 1. The middle one was talent tree number 2, so 2 minus 1 is 1. No, it should be 0. I'm off by 1 here. Off by 1. Oh. I believe if I undo a bunch, I don't really do that, but I believe I had 1 to 0 indexing, not 1 indexing, right? Because getting 1 to negative 2 is minus 3. So if I add instead of subtract here, it'll add half to this value. Or it'll add 1 to this value, which should give me the right value. We'll find out soon. All right, so we had our panels. Got their 4 things. They're not rotated. None of the other stuff matters. It's already how we like it. Then the image itself. The only thing we want to do with that is set its color. We don't have a concept of talent tree color at the moment. I think that's something we will add. I should keep adding this to the to-do list. Let's add minor things down here. Consider talent tree order. Give talent trees colors. What else did we have? We do want to set the text box. So this thing has tree name text. Could just do that. Create the custom property, get the object, and immediately just set its text property. That's all we need to do. We're going to change anything else about that. Okay, we'll spawn these soon, but for now, I'm pretty sure we can just hit save and see what horrible script errors this gives us. I'm going to hide that. Look at that, lots of horrible script errors. I'm a wizard. I know exactly what it's going to do. Require failed, ooh, that's new. Utility 3, that looks like I put an extra character in here by accident. These are not local. Can't be local. And this entire script is going to fail because it doesn't have utility on all these things. Yep, that makes sense. Every place we reference this table in here, which is got to be a lot of places. We have to put that on there. I realize I could do search and replace. I tend to like, I guess, I tend to be a little careful about reading through and seeing what I'm doing. What I could do, let's do a search here. Let's use regex and so this should be not periods. Is that correct? Let's see what happens when we put the period there. Finds them all. Okay. So I find all. I could search in file. Apparently not. Okay. Well, it'll error us if we mess that up. Let's do the same thing here. Find. Aha. Okay, that did work. Great. So we can. The catch here is that if I try to do search and replace, it's going to replace the character in front of it. That is not a period, which could be different characters. These lines might be too long. Poop. Whatever. Worry about it later. Alright. Seems to think that's fine. We will stop again. Alright. Talent selector utility 121. What is it not like there? Tree width. Look at that. Missed one. And 287. Player state group. It is there. I guess the previous function erroring is what made that mess up. 85. That's this was a precarious change. Aha! All right. So if I pause and hide those and hide that, we have one fire tree. It's right in the middle. Looks correct. If I take my talent trees, and I'm going to make 3 of them, call this one bananas, and this one water balloons. And hit play. And there it is. Sweet. Okay. 40. Didn't like that. Expected integer received number. Okay. There we go. So that's saying, hey, give me a float. I didn't want a float. On 40, so width has to be a float. Okay. So we're in the land of, you know, somewhere I should write integer here. Not you, this guy. Math.floor is generally what you want for this case. Yep, I think math.floor will work for all of our cases. We don't need to do any fancy things. Tree height is constant. In fact, I'm going to get an integer. It's fine. And this is going to be 0, and this could also be not an integer. So do that. Bam. And unhit all my stuff again because this is an editor time thing, but we got 3 trees. They look nicely spaced if you enter to get my chat window. That's actually a lot of space. I'd expect this to be a little closer to my chat window. Let's... It's interesting, I can't... Well, I can. I select a UI container. Where is the fire tree? That guy. With 270 x negative 298. So half of the width subtracted from that. 135 is 435 is about the coordinate here off from center. So this entire thing is about 800 or 900. Yeah, that's 870. We're pretty close to the full width. Maybe the chat's not as big as the thing claims it is. Right, that seems a lot smaller. If we line this up with something, let's try to do that. Is there anything in my level I can line this up with? Okay. Okay, no, that's right on. Why is it so far off? Did I miscalculate the first time I did this? Oh, I know why it's so far off. Because this isn't 16:9 ratio. Let's try that again. All right. So this horrible mess again. Tilted panel, container. I'm gonna hit F11. Now I'm gonna try chat. Okay, it's pretty close. That was correct. And yeah. Are they constant order? Bananas, water balloons, fire this time. No, they're not. They're just random order. Okay, that is definitely going to need to be fixed. Good call on that. But for now, we'll leave on it. Leave it and worry about it later. Part of this is, I should actually have this on my to-do list. Support won't be showing some trees. Part of the spec for the game we're working on, and it kind of makes sense for a lot of other uses of this, is that each player does not have access to every tree. But there might be 8 or 10 trees to find, but you only get 3 of them to yourself, which kind of fits a game where you pick a class that only has certain talents, for example, or that sort of thing. But in that case, we also really, we need ways to only show certain trees. We need to get a little more careful about that. We'll add that in later, part by part. All right, so we got our tree panels. They are atrociously colored, but otherwise they're there. And okay. Next thing is text box didn't do anything in the image. Great. Let's count tree panels. Talent buttons. All right. You're right. Could stick an index number there. We could just have it when you define these. In fact, this is almost certainly what we ended up doing, or something similar to this. Is right here on this thing. There's a couple of values like color and just order maybe, and they're just not necessarily in incremental order. And yeah, if you don't have all those trees, it doesn't. It just takes the ones you have and orders them. All right, talent buttons. So these ones are the things we actually need to put in a table somewhere here, because we're going to have a tick function or something that updates these. If you have the talents, if you are able to take the talents. So as you gain some talent points, suddenly your talent trees become more available. As you if you take one talent, then the ones below that required it are available, that sort of thing. The talent's going to require levels, so if you get the level, then you need that sort of thing. So for blank talent data in pairs, talent tree table, tree name. Okay. So the way this was set up is it's a large table. Each entry is I guess we could have just, oops, sorry. Each entry the key is the name, the data is another table, of which the key is the talent name, and the data is this big table of all the things in it, including its name. We thought about it for a while, whether or not we needed the name. We ended up needing it. So it's just, I could put talent name here. It doesn't matter, it's an entry in talent data, that's probably fine. All right, so for each one of these, local button, talent button, talent button template, parent equals tree panel. How convenient. Do this right in the same for loop, and we can use the thing above. And we want to be in the panel so that it correctly scrolls with it and all that. All right, I think the buttons, middle dock is top left, point on parent to attach to, so the coordinates are relative to the top left, and then anchor is middle center, so we just say where we want the center of the button. I think that makes sense. Maybe we want these top left now that we know we have a size of the gap and a size of the button. Which will make the math easier. That'll be kind of similar either way. The middle's actually not convenient here. Let's make these top left. Bottom right might actually be easier, because then it's just a pure gap plus button size calculation, but I think top left is fine. My pirate. In which case, the button is slightly off, right? Yeah, so the button has to have a slight offset to look correct. Yeah. All right. So the background is just an image. The only thing I have to set in there is a color, and that just stays constant, maybe. We might end up having to finding that the button itself is not enough to depict a disabled state. We actually have to change the background color too, but we'll try this out and see. In fact, we'll find out pretty quickly. So get custom property, background. And that is an image. Close that. UI image, set color. Simple enough. And if we look at all the data somewhere here, icon color, I think icon color is actually good. We decided to invert this. So the background is the color that it ends up, and the icon itself is a constant. So count data dot icon color. Simple enough. That's the background. The border we don't have to touch. The frame. Why is that custom property? That means I thought we had to touch it for some reason. Maybe there's things we might want to change for disabled state. We'll find out. And the button. So tree template per tree, position size to that. Button template per talent. Children of that panel. Position size. Set color. Set icon. Set of handlers. Oh, we have to change the position and size of all these pieces, of course. We do need these things. In which case, I'm going to store these off to variables because otherwise it's going to be really unwieldy. Local background image. Because we have to position them all independently. Kind of a shame. Actually, I can put them on a panel and scale the panel. Is that going to work? Yes, we can do this. Okay, let's back up here for a second. So these all, we need a regular panel. Oh, I don't want to have to scale each part and know the relative sizes of them and all that. So leave our containers down here. Okay. So the panel, they're all doing top left stuff, same as before. But these, the panel is going to be 100 by 100, which is the size of these, so they just inherit their width. This one also inherits, but adds its self size to it. And its size is -10. And could actually put this in middle center. Give it, okay, yeah. We don't need to, that makes sense. We can have these all be middle center. All right, so these things all just follow the panel. They're all dead center, and the button itself knows to be 10 pixels smaller than these two, which I really could have any data in here at all, it doesn't matter, they're inheriting it. So we can just scale the panel, and it works. We're gonna put this on here as well. And update that. Great. So before we do that, so the panel gets its position and its position and its size. So width equals basically this, only instead of max tree width, this is going to be max button size. Height, same thing. Then X and Y. So the talent data knows its X coordinate. This is one indexed. 1 is in the left column, 2 is in the middle column, 3 is the right column. Times max button size plus button padding. Okay. Some parentheses here. This isn't quite right. So the button size, we're back, close pbrush, open pbrush again. So we want that distance for 1, this distance for 2, this distance for 3. If we have, another talent over here, another talent over here. So it's n minus 1 times the gap and n times the gap and n minus 1 times the size of the button. So this is 1 gap, this is 2 gaps and 1 button, this is 3 gaps and 2 buttons. Which is almost what we have here. So button size times, could write this the other way around, kind of distribute it the other way differently than I did up here. Basically saying this is the X position times button size plus the padding, and we're 1 button size too big. So now we subtract a button size. And luckily, Y is exactly the same. Okay. We didn't talk about tree panel height. Let me the image here. There is actually a reference to this image, right? Because I want to talk about setting its color, but I also want to set its height based on the maximum height of the talent tree, so that if there aren't that many talents, it doesn't have to scroll at all. And if there's a ton of talents, then it is the correctly, we don't have buttons down here that you scroll to and then the image just ends. That being said, I hadn't considered as well, this is why I said the UI stuff would take more than 1 day, that you could have a very small talent tree, maybe only 3 rows, and then maybe you want these things to be shorter. Anyway, we'll keep working on it and get there. So we've got the panel in the right spot. We've set the background image. We're not going to touch the border. And now we've got this button. So we have to set look at specific talent. We want to set the icon of the button, reduce the color, and then we want to set up some handlers for it. We'll deal with that. We'll make a comment and then come back to it. That's called button. Set image, I believe. Let's see what button says. Why is Chrome always last? UI button. Button color, hovered color, pressed color, disabled color, set font color, set image. Okay. And the image is right there. Okay. Hook, up, button, event handlers. So back to a bunch of script errors. Let's actually just turn that off entirely. And the tooltip panel, same deal. In fact, that actually is kind of the state you want the tooltip panel to be. The tooltip panel to be in, because it'll be turned on as we use it from the script. Okay, look at that. We got some icons. That's not quite right, but it's something. Did I intentionally make my camera able to zoom way out? This is unpaused, I see. Okay. There are 4. What are they actually supposed to look like? So we've got x2, y1. So that's too far to the right. In fact, I think that's what's happening, is that they're too stretched out here. And then x3, y2 we can't see, would be over here. x2, y3 is this one. x1, y4, okay. x3, y4 over here, and x2, y5. Okay, so these are just too spaced out. The whole thing should be more compressed. Why, though? Oh, because they're not using the scale at all here. That's why. Look at that. Tree scale. Was a pain. But we stick it in there. We didn't get any script errors. Hey, that's also bad, but better. For what it's worth, there's a test script that it runs every time. We could take it out of the tree if we wanted. It basically randomly assigns talents and tries to, we used it to show the replication was working correctly. All right, so this is the right shape. Too high up now. We can actually select these things while we're paused. X offset is literally negative. Why are those negative? Got it. Because same problem. We need more parentheses. Oh, I see. This has to be back here because we need to multiply scale by everything, but not the subtraction should not be multiplied by that. Hey, look at that. Okay. That looks a lot better. They're all fireballs. You may have noticed if you looked at my trees, they literally are just fireballs. I didn't make different things. All right, we're getting there. These look kind of bad when they're that small. You notice you can't see the border at all. So I probably want to make that a little bit smaller. And make the background image a little bit smaller. Also, they override the text at the top. I didn't consider that at all. So we should add a little bit of gap for that. And let's make these visible. Do the same thing on this guy. Make a really obvious border. Okay. Let's see how that looks. Interesting. Not black. Huh. So UI images don't scale like linearly. They have some 9-slice technology so that sometimes they scale in nice ways. The corners look good. They don't get stretched out. But at small sizes, sometimes they behave differently. I'm a little surprised that turned so different. But oh, I see. This is actually an outline. That's not what we want. That's on top. Let's make it BG flat 2 as well. So 2 copies of the same. There we go. Okay. They look okay. You can tell that they're not pixel aligned perfectly. Like this one right here, the left side's a little skinnier than the right side. And let's try to move it down a little bit. So the buttons need to move down based on the size of this thing right here. The height of the text box. Which we can actually just read out of this thing. Local text height. Tree panel. Okay, custom property. Tree. Oh, we already had it. Look at that. It's the same thing, I'm sorry. Well, text. We're saving that into a variable because then we're gonna offset all the panel Ys here. Just jam that into this calculation. That's way over the line now. Oops. Variable for this part of the calculation. Unscaled y equals, or unadjusted, let's say. And we can adjust it. Perfect. So we add a little bit to that, get the height in there. Hopefully that looks okay. Hide this again. Okay. Those look like talent trees. That's a pretty good start. It's an old thing about how it's much harder to generalize something than to try to handle exactly one case, right? And trying to handle the case of how many different talent trees you have and how many different talents is. If I were just making one specific game for myself, I would not do all this. I would simply write it exactly how I want it. All right, so let's worry about the Y coordinate now before we continue going. First, let's test one thing. So this has a reference to the image, which we have not touched at all. In fact, I'm going to reference it right here. Local background image. I can't use the same name. Tree background. And this one I'm going to say button background. Tree background image is that thing, only I call it background image, same as the other one. It's not the same as the last. Oof. All right. Consistency. Okay. So I want to, just for testing, just set it small and see if my scroll panels don't have scroll bars. Look at that. Okay. Can I set this to that? Does it have a scroll bar for the exact same height? It does. -1. Okay, gotta be less. That's the magic number. That's a little strange, but I'll take it. So we know exactly how tall this has to be. And we're going to, I think a lot of the math I'm doing should eventually be a built-in feature somewhere. Maybe? A lot of the math I'm doing is necessary because I'm trying to make this adjust on the fly based on properties that someone else using my template would put in based on how many trees they want to put in, that sort of thing. I think that our UI system in general does have a lot of ways it could be improved and, you know, have this sort of thing handled for you. But I don't think it necessarily needs to go as far as handling a dynamic number of things, having a feature where you say, here's, I want to put any number of buttons here and you make it look nice. Maybe it does. Right, exactly. Part of this, I may be doing this the wrong way. So I have an engineering background. I have not worked with UI tools generally. I've done a little bit of building things myself and figuring out how it goes. But it really is just me figuring it out and liking math, so I'm doing the math. But someone who's a UI designer, like the guy we have at work who made all this UI, you know, textures and all this, all these things. Yeah, he's not gonna be doing this math. That's not his sort of thing. He would want to have some tools to help him with that. And a lot of people fall into that same boat. I would like to be familiar with more things. I try to approach a lot of things as just how can I learn about this? How can I do more new things I haven't done before? There's just too much. So this is where I am now, what I can do. And maybe I'll run into that in the future. All right, so what we want to do is figure out how tall this thing should be. And we know how tall a tree is because it's right here next to tree width. So put it in here. Before we even do this, actually we can do this outside of the loop. Doesn't matter per tree. Goal tree height, or I guess the height. That's not how you spell that. Height. We want to call this the min tree height, right? Because I don't want the trees to be. I guess I don't think I want them to be short and stubby. I'm not sure about that. And maybe this actually needs to be inside here. Sorry, I realized that it needs to include the text at the top. But basically we're saying we need to know, so the tree height times, where do we use tree width? Here somewhere. Max tree width. This basically the same calculation. Times oops. So tree height times button size plus tree height plus 1 times button padding. And we got one more element here, which is we basically have to do the same thing we did out here. Let's just add the height and tree scale on this first part. So fat doesn't fit in a line. And there we go. Okay. So put this into 2 lines, same deal. Equal unadjusted tree height. Stick it in here. All right, so this is the min tree height. And then we come down here and math.max that and tree height minus 1. So we'll make it exactly the size of the panel if we can. If it needs to be taller, we'll make it taller. Well, this works, hopefully. It doesn't work. 4 to 7. Tree name text is defined down here. All right, yeah, it is not the order. Makes sense. Okay, that works. The problem we have is that I want to store this. I want to know if this happened. I want to know if there's a scroll bar because I want to use that to adjust this other logic. This That's a real can of worms. Because if you have the scroll bar, then you might need the icons to be smaller, which might mean they don't need the scroll bar anymore. This is a I've seen this before. I've seen a lot of bugs in programs where the scroll bar flickers in and out of existence because of exactly this state, that they depend on each other. What can we do here? We can cheat in a lot of ways. We can make this a lot simpler, or we can try to make it actually handle that case in a good way. Let's leave it for now. Let's just not even worry about it and just have it be. So if I take that this -1 for a second, we get scroll bars. It's a little bit off center. It looks okay. The scroll bar is the same color as the background. If I make the background a color, let's see how that looks. Make those green. And I mean, the green is hideous, but it looks okay. The fact that it's offset with the scroll bar, okay. We can live with that for now. Trying to dive too deep into one very complex issue when getting the whole thing functioning is much more important. Oh, there's some blank lines in here. All right, button event handlers. So, talked about this a little bit last time. These are going to be functions defined above. Buttons have 5 events. We care about hovered, uncovered, and clicked. Because clicked is smart. If you read this description, if every button is clicked, this triggers on mouse button up if both button down and button up events happen inside the button hitbox. This is how buttons work in almost every program. I've hit a few programs that don't work this way, and it's horrible. Real professional software that makes me sad. But this is how buttons should work. If you click the back button, you say, hey, that's not what I want, and drag your mouse over here and let go, it doesn't go back. Great. Hovered and unhovered are for the tooltip. Clicked for actually trying to take the talent. Okay, pretty easy. Function on button clicked. Button. Function on button hovered. Button. I'm ready some things here on button unhovered. Is that what it's called? Unhovered. Okay. They hit the button. That's it. We need more data here. I don't want to make a function for every. I don't want to define a function or a lambda for every single button itself. I could actually just define things in line here, but I also can just pass the data. And let me find event. Connect event listener. Any number of additional arguments after the listener function. Those arguments will be provided after the event's own parameters. Great. So all we need here, talent data. Talent data we already have. It's easy, and it tells us all the things we need to know. For hovered and unhovered, it tells us how to populate the tooltip and where to put it. And for clicked, it tells us what to do. Hello there, Scav382. This is where you can learn things about writing Lua that are vaguely related to core. Actually, very related to core. Core is wonderful. All right, so our button here, we just need to connect these things. Dot. I do not use these functions very often, by which I mean I've basically never used them before. Clicked event, hovered event, unhovered event. Clicked event, connect on button clicked. And we need to provide it talent data. Okay. Hovered event, unhovered event. You may notice that currently our game does not actually take the mouse cursor and make it usable. There are some functions in the UI namespace for that would be hooked up in the same place as the code that actually shows and unshows this, which is something we'll be doing a little bit later. Actually, we can just... No, I'll leave that there. That being said, I can in my test script right now, I can just do that, right? We don't need to run around the world, doesn't do anything. So we're going to call UI dot set cursor visible. This guy. So I'm catching myself here, reading chat, but also this is a server script. I can't call this functions. Yes, it does work like that. I wasn't sure, and I actually why I just looked up the event itself. The description here says it does take extra arguments, which is great. That's very helpful. That being said, if it did not do that, what I would have done is instead defined a function inline right here that just took the thing and called it with an extra argument, which is effectively the same code. And for, what is the other case where this comes up? Task.spawn does not support this behavior, but you can do exactly that. You can say task.spawn function, my data, end. Because task.spawn requires a function that takes no arguments. Here's your function that takes no arguments. You passed in your data. All right, so the thing we're going to do, my test script is not a client script. It is a server script. So we're going to make a new one, or we already have one. Do we have a test client here? Talent test client. Perfect. We used this before and then didn't need it for a while. Let's see what it does and make it do something else. Oop, does nothing. Okay. We will go back to that UI namespace. We want to set the cursor visible. That's almost what I got here. I'm having copy paste issues, so, you know, how do I use computer? And we don't need to lock to the viewport. That's a kind of unreasonable, or not the behavior we expect. Set cursor can interact with UI. That's the other thing we need. Okay. So now, if I go back to my game and hit play, there's my cursor. I can mouse over they change colors. Perfect. Okay. All right. So tooltips. If I come over here and show you a tooltip, you notice, ooh, it moves. Interesting. Okay. In some programs, they don't move. When you put your cursor over something, it gives you a tooltip, and then it just doesn't move at all until you unhover. And these ones, they do move. Let me verify that with some other things. My tabs in Firefox, if I move the tooltip goes away. What about Chrome? Do I have any tooltips over here? So these ones don't move at all. This is horribly inconsistent. Well, in our case, this is the easiest way to write them, so that's what we're going to do, and I think that actually makes sense. The tooltip moving, if you're trying to read it on the fly in a game, you're like hovering over things, you want to read it, having the text move is not helpful, and it's not going to move very far anyway. So this is going to figure out where to put it and spawn it. This is going to unspawn it, and this is going to try to take the talent. I think we can literally just, no, we can't do this because it's a server function. Try add player talent. This is a server function, so what this is going to have to do is send an event that does the same thing. We'll worry about that later. Send event to server. All right. Not that people are going to be clicking these too often. I guess you can sit there and spam the button, but ideally every talent that you are not able to take immediately is already disabled. So you're not in a state where you can spam on things that you can't take. So you press once, you send an event, and that's that. If we need to, we can add a small cooldown to it or something. Button hovered. So the easy part of this is to just toggle that. In fact, I think that's the entirety of this function, right? When you unhover, make the tooltip invisible. We don't need to change any of its properties or anything. When it is hovered, we have to set its position, we have to set its text, description, all this stuff. All right. So description text becomes data.description, I believe is just the field. Description. Yep, right there. Okay. Cost text and required level text. If I go back to core and look at this guy that I made invisible, these text boxes actually have more information in them than just the cost and required level. They have a little bit of, you know, like literally they say cost, like that. Concatenate those together, and required level, same deal. Okay, so we've set all those. We're gonna do some styling on this a little later. It's kind of admittedly horrendous. They're not even like good positions, but this is a you know, first pass to see that this works. And the last thing we want to do is, back in the UI namespace, get cursor position. This is really useful because that's where we want this to be, almost. Cursor position. Okay. So you'll notice, let me get an example up here again. If I hover over something at a tooltip, it's generally down to the right from my cursor, right? In core, when I mouse over something, my cursor is still visible, so maybe I want it a little bit further down right. See how it's offset a little bit, so your cursor is not covering the corner of it. But if I hover something way on the right of my screen here, do these not have tooltips? These might have tooltips. If I hover something right on the side of my screen here, something here is a tooltip, right? It doesn't go off my screen is what I'm getting at here. It goes to the left. It knows where the edge of the screen is. It is important. Otherwise you can't read it. Admittedly, that's probably something we can just ignore because this thing is small enough compared to the size of your screen. And going to the right, actually, yeah, we're just gonna ignore this. We'll worry about it later. I know that'll be something we have to worry about, but given that our talent trees go in the middle and they have to make space for the chat on the left, there's a big gap on the right to be symmetrical. It's never gonna be that big. Okay, so tooltip panel .x equals cursor position .x, and same for y. I believe I set this in a way that that should work. We'll find out quickly. Tooltip panel, top left, yep, okay. Ooh, that is behind things. Which makes sense. It spawned things in the same container and they came afterward. It needs to be on top. Do I have a way to force that? I don't. How unfortunate. Okay. So what we're gonna do, I'm gonna duplicate that and delete. Let's see, which way is this gonna be easier? I want two containers because they're in the order, they draw in the order here. So I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna have the other thing spawn inside this container and this one be the only tooltip in it. Hey, look at this. This looks so pro. I'm actually pretty happy with this. They all have the same text, but we've got tooltips. If we make this look not horrible, then this will look like a game, or part of a game. Okay. Let's do a little style and pass on this. Let's get visible again. So what we're gonna do, make things line up nicely, give the background a color. In fact, we could make it match the color of the talent tree. We've talked about adding colors to talent trees. For now, we will simply not worry about that. Give it nice rounded corners. Give it a, how about a neutral grayish? Darker gray. Like that seems reasonable. These are all top left align. That's not right. This should be, no, bottom center. Maybe top center. We could make it a, we could like parent each of these to the outer box, or we could parent them to like each other. I think bottom center is fine. X offset, 0. Y offset, 0. This guy's going to be not some arbitrary size that I just dragged into the viewport. Oh, it's inheriting from the parents. Sure. That's very large. Let's make that smaller. That seems alright. We're gonna make the text a little smaller once we do this. So this inherits that size. So this guy should be top left aligned with a very small offset. And if that's the font size, it should be shorter. Maybe a little bit smaller font size. Too small. 1840 seems about right. We'll give it, this whole thing was 300 wide, so we'll give this 150. Can I right align the text? I can, okay. So this guy's gonna be right aligned, top right. Yeah, this was really a hack. 0, 0, what did I say for the other one? 10. So X is -10, Y is 10, and 1840. In fact, I'm gonna make these both wider. Kind of at a hope they don't overlap, but if one of them is much bigger than the other, they can go either way. I guess the cost should be smaller. If your cost is that many digits, then you've done something horribly wrong. Description, 18 size font again. Parent width, sure. How tall is this thing? These are 40 and the whole thing is 300. So this gets to 60 if it's right up against those. I think we want a little bit of gaps. 240 seems okay. And X offset for inheriting parent. No, that's not good. We can do that. We can do that so it fits in the right size. Y offset -10. Move it up. 10 years in for the edge, so it looks a little nicer. Then maybe make it a little bit shorter again. Okay. This looks alright. I think this is interesting. I think I need to move it in from the sides a little bit. I think 10 was not enough there. 15. The bottom's okay. I think it's the X offset. Bring it a little bit. Bit much. We'll cut that to 15 and hope it looks all right. Okay, for now I think this is fine. I want to put a border on it, so I'm going to duplicate this image. And get a nice frame on it. One of the ones that's solid color, not like that guy. This one maybe? Maybe that one. Like that. Then make this invisible again. All right, perfect. That looks way, way better than it did before. Surely you can agree. Okay. So we'll worry about this later. We've got our tooltips working. Sweet. That wasn't too bad. We've spawned the buttons. All right, so one thing we didn't do is the buttons enable, disable state. State, button, enable, disable state. That's something we need to be able to update later, so we need to be able to have a handle to every button rather than have to like iterate through the tree and find them or something. So these guys should be stuck into a table somewhere. Could stick them right into the main table. It's right in the talent data. It's not the worst idea. I'm taking advantage here of the fact that tables in Lua are a reference type. So whenever you make a copy of them, or I guess when you make a variable and point it at a table that already exists, you're just making another reference to the same table. So every place I have a talent data, I know it's the actual one in the table itself, in the main big table, and I can just add things to it, and then any other reference will always have those new fields. I don't have to worry about it mixed matched states. So I could just stick the button right in there. Which feels a little weird because that table is defined as a big constant. So I probably shouldn't do this. I'd probably put it in a separate table. The one place where I actually did take advantage of this to change something was if you, let's see where I did it. It was in checking when I read the table if there's some invalid requirements. If you require a talent that doesn't exist, then I actually just mark that to not be required at all so it doesn't keep erroring over and over again. And try to draw an error that's not there and that sort of thing. All right. So we want to put these buttons somewhere. We could basically just make a key. We can use a table, but we need to know what talent tree and what talent it came from to be able to uniquely identify it, because you can have this talent with the same name in different trees. Humph. I think we just jam it back in the same table. That doesn't seem right. That being said, I said the table's constant. So are the buttons. Like, the buttons themselves can change, but the actual buttons themselves are created on startup and never changed after that. Okay, I'm convinced. I'll stick it right in the table there. Actually, I'm going to, but I'm gonna do it at the end. Talent data dot button equals talent button. Okay, so we've just jammed that into the table. It's there. We can use it later. There, tick function. All right, requirement arrows. Requirement arrows. Let's see what utility I have here. Get required talent data. I might have to expose this function. Or I want to, rather than trying to write it again. So what this does is you give it a talent and it finds the required talents and gives you their data back. And the reasoning for this, I wrote it originally just to be able to check. But if you look at my talents here, each talent has 3 checkboxes. It requires above, left, and requires above right. Those don't have to be in the next line. Basically, if it requires above left, it looks over here and then keeps looking up until it finds something. It's only an error if it finds nothing or if it's already on the left. Above right goes right all the way up. Above just keeps going up. So this talent can require this talent. And we need to know where the next talent is to how far we have to draw an arrow to. And my talent require arrow needs a 4th image. Because if you're going diagonally a little bit, that's 3 images to make the arrow, and then a 4th one to go up straight and be the long part. The reason I'm building arrows out of images instead of rectangles instead of using the arrow icon that we have here, this guy, is that this, or any of these really, is that there are diagonal ones and straight ones, and the diagonal ones need to be longer without being fatter too. Or I guess fat isn't right. Without being stretched. I want the tip to be the same shape, but have the tail be longer. We went back and forth on this a little bit last time I did this. Image 4. Okay, so this has 4 images in it. And this guy is going to be called in a few places. We're going to add that to it. There. Oops. And there. Okay. So that shouldn't have broken this. Because of my ordering, you'll see that I want to move this down. And as I pasted it, expands itself. But I don't want the individual functions. All right, so for each talent, I can get the required talents and then look at their X and Y coordinates to figure out where the arrows need to be. Simple enough. Yeah, that's better. I just covered the clipboard I needed. Requirement arrows. Required talents. Okay. I don't even need to. This returns, I believe, a table just like the tree data already, where the keys are the talent names and the values of the talent datas. Turns a table up to 3 required results. Where is result used in this function? Name equals data. Yep, okay. Just what I was saying. All right. Where talent data pairs. So for anything that doesn't require anything, there's nothing in here. Even if it had invalid requirements, that would have already been cleaned up. So this is only the case where we actually have real valid requirements. And we can we kind of have to reconstruct if it's left, right, or middle, because even if the checkboxes on the talents, like pairing them up is not obvious. There's no easy way to say, oh, this was paired with the left one or the right one besides looking at the X values. Y def equals dot tree y minus So you have to require something above you in the tree. Something that requires a lower, I guess above you doesn't mean anything else besides position visually, but the requirements have to be above. So if we take our talent and subtract the one above it, we're going to get a positive number. How tall is this arrow going to be? And I can do the same thing for xdiff, but this could be either way. I'm going to define it in the same way because it would be really weird to have this be inverted from the other one. Even if that's kind of in my mind, I would want to know which direction am I going to the required talent. This one I want it to be positive, so we'll define it the same way. If diff equals -1, then sometimes I write when I'm not sure exactly how the logic of the math's gonna look, how simple how much I can simplify these statements. I just start writing cases and then worry about later if they end up being exactly the same and I can cut them, pare them down. So if x diff is -1, so that means the required talent has a higher x value than our talent. It means it's to the right. What is it actually called on the talent itself? Requires above right. Right. Then we need to grab this line right here and then find the requirement arrow template. Spawn that instead. So we want it to be on the same panel. We want it to scroll up and down like the buttons do. But we need to make a basically, let's draw an arrow. Oops. This program is so unbelievably terrible. We need to draw this thing. These 3 pieces to make an arrow. And then if it's going further up, then this piece needs to go all the way to here, and we need to do that. Make sense? And we're going to try to size them correctly so that we don't have any gap or awkward overlap on this side, that it looks nice. That will be a little bit of math, but we can do it. Let's look at what these alignments are. Anchor, middle, center, top left. So it's same coordinates as the buttons, top left from the corner, but the buttons were top left, top left. These are middle center. I could make them top left. Is that what I want? I don't think so. I think middle center makes sense because these are gonna be rotated. And so being able to rotate around the middle and not have to figure out more complicated things makes a lot of sense. This is ugly. Do I want to put some of this in the template itself? Do I want to actually position these in a way that they're kind of like an arrow and I just stretch one piece? I could do that. That doesn't sound too bad, actually. I did talk earlier about trying to make the data not split between script and UI things, but this is ugly. And maybe this will reveal to me how I can make this work a little bit nicer. Put a container so I can see it. Let us want 3 of these in a group, basically. Not a group. I want 3 of these in a panel. Panel. Why did you put another container in there? Whatever. Hey, I'm trying to get this thing outside of the panel. Okay. So the idea is I can rotate the panel. The panel will be an arrow, and then I can rotate it. I can scale one dimension of one of its pieces, and I can take the other piece, the other arrow, or the other rectangle, and put it in the right place. So this just being 3 giant images that are aligned to the panel. Top left, mid center. Yep, same deal. And these guys. $100 to look like a button. That makes some sense. The buttons are pretty close to each other, right? They're only 50 apart. We were using, last time we did this, we had a, bring it up, Diablo 2 skill tree. These guys. So these arrows actually like go right into the buttons. And in fact, for things that require things next to each other, yeah, they're pretty close. It's a tiny little arrow. Make this bigger? Sure. And begin. Yep, that's what the game looked like. Okay. So this will work. I considered having the arrow icon for what it's worth, as well as a rectangle to make it longer. I could just use the arrow and not worry about the fact that they don't quite line up or aren't the right size and scale. Or use like one of these angle arrows for the side ones and this for the middle one. Let's see. Panel's going to be rotated. I want the default state to be pointing down, I think. So I do something like that. And then this. And this. Looks not like an arrow. I will set some values in here in a second to make it look nicely, but you see what I'm getting at here. Width of 25, no, that's too big. 20, 15 maybe. Okay, so they're all gonna be 15 width. That makes this a little standard. Height 50, 30, 50 is too small. This whole thing's 100, right? So 80, let's say. 30, is that too little? Maybe. Yeah, it's a little small. It's like both of these make them 40. Because they have to go all the way to the point, otherwise it's not going to have a tip. Something like that. Okay. So I'm going to draw on a piece of note card, and then I can hold it up if you want to see. But paint is not sufficient for my geometry needs here. The middle piece has a lot of leeway in where it can move up and down. Right, the two side pieces have to line up perfectly, or should line up perfectly. I guess I could make one of them shorter, but I don't really care. The middle piece can move up and down a little bit. I want the middle piece to be nice and centered in my overall thing that I'm rotating. And then stretchable, I guess. I could possibly make it so that if I stretch the panel, yeah, I might be able to make this smart. Okay. So the middle piece, I can inherit parent height and give it -20. So it always is 10 from the edges. And then if I take my panel, scale it, well, if I do this correctly, I can do this and have it actually look like an arrow and not have to touch the images at all. That would be very nice. In which case, these should be middle, center, middle, center. Perfect. Same deal here. No, these should be bottom center. Like that. Okay. And then not inheriting anything. I'll do some math in a second to figure out exactly what these coordinates should be. Because we're going to scale this whole thing too, I think. Right, if the whole... is a little ugly. Let's see if we can do this. I need to be able to scale this entire arrow down if the talent trees themselves are scaled way down. So now with this, where did I just do that? If I stretch this panel, look, the arrow scales in a way that makes sense, how we want it to. That's pretty convenient. I like the middle one. These guys, I actually want to make this 10, no, -10. I want to make it a little bit above center. And, okay, that way, so it's 70 tall and it's 10 off from the middle. Let me think about that. No, I want it to be 5 off from the middle. So that means it's, that this whole thing's 100 tall. It is 70, it is 5 off from the middle. So it's 35 up and 35 down from 5 off. So it's 40 up from the middle and 30 down, which means that last 10 is where these things can go, where the side pieces can go. 40, 30, and let the last pieces, I want their points to go right, basically equidistant from the edge as the other side was. So 10 units off. 10. Question is, how are the dimensions defined when I rotated this thing? That is, I actually don't know. Let's see, if we set X offset to 0, okay, that's actually X offset. Great. And Y offset? Okay, so these are actual X and Y in parent space. That's great. To the middle. So middle of this thing is 10 units from the bottom plus, we're doing some square root of 2s here. Get out my trusty TI calculator. The length of this thing is 40. And the width is 15. So it's those two added together divided by the square root of 2. 40 plus 15 divided by square root of 2. I can show you my diagram in a second, why I came up with that. Diagram. So from the middle to the middle of the end, that is half of 40, and then from the middle to the side, or from the middle of the end to the corner, is 15 in a straight line. But because we're going at diagonal, or divided by the square root of 2. So we add this all together, we get 48.89, so we'll give it a 49 here. For y offset is negative 49, I believe is what we want. That seems too high. Maybe this number is scaled. And x offset should be going from the middle of the bottom. It's a similar calculation, but instead of 40 plus 15, it's 40 minus 15. Because one of them goes plus it, towards it, one of them goes against it. I gave us 17.6, we'll give it an 18. Okay, these clearly look too big, right? It's too high, too far over. What is my guess for how this is working this way? I'm going to divide those numbers by root 2 and see what I get. As a hunch. One of them comes out very nicely, one of them does not. All right, so we have a 35 and a 13. 13, 35. If we get that third image out of here for now, not quite right. Interesting. Zero's there. What did I do wrong? Oh, I need to divide those numbers by 2. I'm sorry. That's the square root of 2 is all wrong. I was doing 40 and 15. I needed to be 20 and 7.5. Is that right? Yeah, it's half the length. Also divided by square. Okay. Yep. Let's redo the calculations. Plus 15 divided by 2 divided by square root of 2. All right, 29 for the y coordinates. That looks good. And x coordinates. Nine. Aha! Okay. And now this one's going to be roughly the same. It looks negative 9 and also negative 29. Look at that. I made an arrow. This is how you do UI with math. All right, and ideally, if I take this panel and stretch it along, it stays an arrow. That's really cool. If I take this panel and rotate it, my arrow stays an arrow. Cool. Great. All right, and this guy who's hiding off in the corner, why do we make these things? 15. Can be the extra piece if the arrow needs to be long. Actually, that handles that already. Maybe we don't need this piece. Maybe we just spawn multiples. Like if you have this red arrow, we could just put one here and then have an arrow that way, but no, I think the straight line makes sense. The catch is, let me show you something. If I duplicate this and rotate it, I have to line this up perfectly, because if it is a little bit too far in overlapping, you've got these little things sticking out, it'll look bad. And if it's a little bit not overlapping, it'll have a little bit gap. So we're gonna have to do some math on that. That's fine, we can do that. So we have a panel that we can rotate and scale, and we have an image. The other catch that I want to think about is, can I scale this entire thing down? Is that a thing I can do? And maybe I won't. Maybe I'll just scale it this way and let the arrow be constant size. But if your tile trees are tiny, we want these to be tiny, and you'll see this currently doesn't do anything. We can inherit the width, but we can't inherit the width at a fraction, I don't think. I don't think there's a way to say I want this to be half as big as the parent. Let me look at our... Let me look at the things we have here for a minute, see if there's something I'm not noticing. Container doesn't have much on it. I can do it from script, of course. But ideally, you'd like to be able to say this is half as big as the parent. Nope. Okay, I don't think we have a way to do that. let us for now not worry about it. We'll just scale to 1 dimension, and if your talent trees are very, very tiny, you'll have arrows look like this, and well, maybe that's fine. Right, so this no longer needs references to all the images. It has reference to the panel and reference to the image. Arrow panel. Extra tail. Extra image, we'll just call it. Alright, by default, we will turn off visibility of that and turn it on if we need it, because that will be the exception, I think. And we'll worry about styling later. Okay, oops, not you. So this now has an arrow panel and extra image. Arrow panel. Get custom property. The fact that it's lowercasing my c scares me. It makes me think that there is a misspelled thing somewhere in this file. Nope. Okay. Just auto-completing stuff to try to mess me up, I guess. Alright, arrow panel is what I call it. And what we need to do, so this arrow panel is top left, middle center. We need to figure out where it goes. So it goes exactly diagonally dead center, like 1 up to the right of our thing. So arrow panel dot x equals, we're gonna set y, x, y, and height, I think, right? Height was when we were, yes. So our button up here, or our panel, X and Y, we can actually reference these, which will be convenient, I think, rather than trying to do this exact math again. Because Y minus X plus, we're going to the right and up, and it's exactly a button size plus a button padding divided by 2, and also multiplied by true scale. Because we're going from the middle of the button, roughly, to the corner, and then the edge to the middle of the gap, middle of the padding. And I think we do the same thing right below it. And the height, in fact, it's going to be a constant. Math.4 times 1.4. Okay, that is my approximation of the square root of 2. And we need to rotate it. Aha, this is important. 45, got it. What is that property called? Did I hide my things? Where did my... These guys like to hide on their own. UI panel. Is it UI control, I guess. I guess every UI control has rotation. Yes. Okay. Let us try to run this and see what we get. Errors. We get errors. 98. Arrow panel. Yep. We wait for object. All right. We have an arrow. It's not where we want it. So why is it wrong? So the buttons, top left, these are top, left, middle, center. So we wanted it to rotate in a neat fashion. If I believe if I put this to top left and then update, it will not work like I want. We can find out. Yep, okay. So it put itself in this gap correctly, then when it rotated down in the wrong place. So we have to do a little bit of extra math for us here. Know where the middle should be. All right, basically we need to add, so the position we got here, panel at X, that's the top left corner, not the middle. So we'll do this a little smarter. For the X coordinate, we only need to divide this one by 2, right? Because we need the full button size and then half the padding, and scale it. For the Y coordinate, we don't need the button size at all. We only need the padding, which makes this even simpler. Hey, look at that, perfect. All right, I'll call it passable for now. You might want a little smaller. It's not scaled down, like I said. Our town trees are pretty small. If we make these enormous, okay, maybe the arrow could be a little smaller. Okay. Then this is rough. I made it so you could scale this thing and make the arrow longer, but in order to do that, I have to move the middle of it. If I had instead stuck it in a way where this was, I can do this. I didn't need to do that. I can make it a different way. Okay. So instead of the parent height was, let's reset you to 100. So we're setting the height of the panel. So the problem here is the way I have it right now is ideal for this behavior, for setting up here or in the middle or on the left. I can put that exactly the middle. But when I want this to extend, I want it to stretch the right size based on the scale and then extend in one direction to go up here. I could put an extra thing on top of it, which might be what I do, is make another image that's in the same place. That's just not the properties on this at all. Okay. So now I have 2 images of the same. This one is not going to inherit parent height at all. It's going to start from the center. It's going to have no offset at all and no height. But I could make it parented to the other one. This is going to be crazy if this works. Top center, bottom center. Okay. So basically what I'm just doing is if you add values to this, it just extends the arrow. 0 does nothing. That's the default. We'll stick a arrow extension. Straight extension. Vertical extension, I guess. Sure. All right. So this one I can scale and it extends the arrow where I need it. And then the other one I can place wherever I need, independent of this entirely, and make it give you the other piece. And it should have the same docking as the panel itself because that's how it's going to be placed. So we got the panel. We need... No, there's no... Okay. Let's just copy that line. Straight extension. If y_diff greater than 1. So if y_diff is exactly 1, then we're done. We know that the required talent is exactly 1 up, 1 to the right. Don't need to add any more to this. If it is greater than 1, then we need to set this guy's height. All we need to set to it. And it's a constant number, actually. Well, based on the tree scale. Because we have this diagonal arrow. And then we extend it to exactly the point where it overlaps the other one in the right way. Which is going to take a little bit of math to figure out how big that is. We want it to go all right. So first, we're going to do two calculations. Blank piece of paper. One is if two lines with finite thickness overlap each other at a 45-degree angle, how much do they overlap to get the corners to exactly line up? Shouldn't be too hard to figure out. If I go exactly to the point where the next talent ends, I get a little short. I know the angle. It's like one of these geometry problems where you just have to figure out exactly the number that gives this, you know, the right way to look at it. I could make use of a cam that looks down at my mouse pad here. Well, I could set that up. That's a thing I could do. I thought about having a whiteboard that I can turn to and draw stuff, but a camera that looks at a piece of paper on my desk is actually a better idea. I'll get another mic arm for that. Okay, I see a way to look at this. It's hard to tell, but I kind of highlighted a little thing there. That's a rhombus. I know it has a 45-degree angle and a 135-degree angle, and I know that its side length is exactly half of my line. So I have a rhombus with side length 3.75, and I need to know how tall this is. Well, it's that divided by square root of 2. Great, easy. There's not a lot of units. 3.75 divided by root 2. 2.65. 2.65. So we're gonna go over by 3 units. That is a small enough number that I could have just tried some numbers to see what it looked like. All right, so then our arrow currently goes. This is some mad hackery. That's all right. Our arrow currently goes 20 units from the edge, right? That's what I did before. 10 units from the edge. 20 units from the edge. I did this. These two should be higher. If I make this negative 39 instead of 29, no, that actually shows. Okay. 29 it is. Well, that was only 10 units. How tall is this thing? 100. And this guy inherits the height minus 30. Okay, so it's 70 tall. It's a little bit above the middle, so it's 40 and 30. Now that makes sense. These should be... I don't know. Well, I know that the back of this thing is 20 from the edge. So, 20. And we have jammed it into a place where we button padding times 1.4. Yep, so we've jammed into that padding space. So this needs to be 20 to get to the end, plus button size. Oh, I see, these should be scaled. That's the problem. That looks a little better. I wonder if I should have just scaled these originally. That's all right. I'm going to add some more digits to this to be more precise. So we're doing the same thing. We're going from, so 20 gives us to the edge of our button itself, or edge of our panel. Then we take the scale of the button size, that gets us to the middle of the button itself, and then we need to add these 3 units. I'm actually going to add them inside the floor, and I'm going to add a more precise value, 2.65, to be a little bit more accurate. All right. So if we do that, then it doesn't work correctly. What happened? What is tree scale? Let's print out tree scale. Okay, way to eyeball this. Okay, 1.54, so we're a little more than half. Okay, that's fine. So why did button padding is half of button size is 50, so this should be, I see, 50 times 1.414 is 70.7. 70.7 gave it a tail. 7 times, what was that? 0.5411. We're at 38. That doesn't display because we're cutting off 30 units. It's basically invisible. That's unfortunate. Okay, so we should take the button and make this middle thing a little bit closer to the edge. It says 10 from the edge, right? Not 20? We want it 10 from the top and 20 from the bottom. That's 70. Yeah, okay. So it is 10 from the edge. At first, that means that should be 10. I did do it correctly. But then, if we do this and then pause and then select one of these guys, talent tree requirement arrow, this guy, it doesn't say what the height is. 38. What did I just calculate? 38. Aha! And this guy is inheriting the height and adding his own, so it should be 8 tall. Where is he? Right there, that tiny little guy. Just barely doesn't peek out here. You know, these things are huge. And is that really 10 to that thing? Seems like we're much closer to this than we are to this. It should be centered in this middle region. I guess we are. The thing that I've selected is dead center between these two, right? It's these arrow things that are too big for this exact context. I talked about trying to scale this whole thing down, which would be possible, but kind of a mess. We could just scale it down in the first place. Make everything skinnier, maybe? How skinny is 5? 5 is pretty skinny. Let's try that. Is that too skinny? That's pretty skinny. If I update this, I realize I have to fix some other math when I do that. How bad does that look? Pretty bad. we made it that skinny, we want it to be closer to the edges too. So instead of being negative 30, we'd do 5 from the edge, let's say. So it'd be negative, so it's be 5 at the top and 10 at the bottom, so negative 15. My offset 2.5, will let me do that? Sure. Okay. This guy is still fine. These need to be recalculated a little bit. Let's find those calculations up here. So instead of this being 40 and 15, they're 40 and 5. So instead of that being 9, it's got to be 12. Okay, that seems correct. And then this negative 29. Lots of math. It's going to be 21 instead. Okay. Okay, you might argue that these are... They look slightly asymmetrical. You see that? I wonder if it doesn't like my 2.5 up here. That shouldn't matter. I don't know. You might argue these should be less long too. Instead of being 40, they should be 30, which is going to change all that math I just did. That does look better. Do the same math again. 21 turns to 17. And 12. Turns to 9 again. Okay. Man, that is really funny how the one looks much fatter than the other. Now let's see how they look when I rotate them around. We'll update this template. Alright. Those look okay. We'll leave it for now. We'll get this later. I'm learning some things. I did say when I started this 3 streams ago that this was somewhat of a UI exploration because I hadn't gone quite so in depth before. What I just learned was that the icons do things that I cannot. They probably scale in a better way and don't end up looking bad like this. That being said, let us, we're going to take this talent and move it up in one of the trees. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, variable 5. Y is going to be 3 on one of the trees. Bam. Okay. So now it goes way too far. It's supposed to go to here and line up just so I can do that with this one. And it doesn't even have the same width. How did that happen? That's crazy. These are supposed to be connected right to the end of the other one. All right, talent requirement arrow. They really do. Not that one. The third one. Tree panel. Talent tree panel. Talent requirement arrow. Okay. That's funny. They're connected to each other. They just don't have the same width. It looks pretty bad. Okay. Made it way too long. Let's figure that out. Well, it's not 10 anymore. I made it 5. And that part was constant, right? When you scale the whole thing. Max button size. Oh, this should be divided by 2 in here. Because we're only going halfway into this thing. We'll just put it in there. Divide that constant by 2. Okay, that looks correct. So now we're going to have the next one going up here and see if that can make that look correctly. So the third thing is the vertical extension. Vertical extension. Whew, there's been a lot of math. I appreciate those of you who have stuck with me through this. I've been thinking about things to do in the future once I finish this talent system, and I've had a lot of ideas for small systems, a lot of ideas for reviewing community content. One of the ideas that I think would probably be very helpful, and maybe people have opinions about this, would be to create sets of things that can be used together. Create a bunch of fantasy abilities, or a bunch of templates you could use to try to make a platformer, or a bunch of puzzle pieces to make a puzzle game. Keys you need to open doors and that kind of thing. But basically just try to make some community content collections of templates that can be used together to make something. I think would be kind of helpful. All right, so the first thing we need to do with this guy is make it visible. Because we made it invisible because you don't need it most of the time. And then we need to put it in the right place. So this guy has the same coordinate space as the panel itself. And we're going to have to put height, X, and Y. So this is actually not as bad as it sounds. X, for example, we know where we put the panel X. Now, admittedly, it's basically this guy, right? Except for instead of going right into the middle, we want to go right into the middle of the next thing entirely. So we're not dividing by 2. Or actually, let me think about this again. We're going from... We could just start with this thing. That might be a way to do this. Instead of starting with panel X, we start with arrow panel. Yeah, that would almost work. And then we put this back inside, because then we're using the same same anchor point. So we're adding half of one of these scaled down to that. Great. Y is going to be a little bit harder because we don't know how tall this thing needs to be. And we know where the bottom is exactly. It is the end of this thing that we did a bunch of fancy math to get the exact point on. We need it to line up correctly with that. But we need the top to go 20 units away from, or 10 units away now? Is that what I just set it to? 5 units away? What did I do to this thing? That's 5 units away from the next button up, wherever that is. And it might be quite a bit higher, right? It could be all the way up to the top of the tree versus the bottom of the tree, that sort of thing. And the height matches the same calculation. In fact, we can do one and then use it to do the other, or the other way around, doesn't really matter. So let me count out these lines so I can run it and show you. So this guy, this point is basically exactly the middle of this button, right? It's the middle of this button plus that 2.65. So we need our height to be, we basically need to figure out how many buttons up do we need to go. It's this scaled amount plus minus the bit to make it line up correctly. So I'm actually going to leave the editor open for a second. Equals ydiff minus 1. So if ydiff is 2, then we need this amount. Times that guy right there, same constant. So that gets us from here to the middle of that. We're close. We're going to add this guy. And so let me sneeze here. Maybe. Excuse me. Okay. And then we need to subtract half of a button width plus 5 or minus 5. So this. Oops. I jam it all into one line and then. Okay. This mess. And the real kicker here is that we need to math up for this because we just put a bunch of stuff in there. I'm just gonna put this all in one horrible line right now, and fix that in a second. I just want to see if this is correct before I go try to make it line up nicely. And then Y, we know how tall it is. And we know where the bottom is, right? So this was, yeah, okay. Let's see. It's panel.y or panel.y. So we're subtract height divide by 2. That's just going to say we just cross that part off. We're going to find the bottom of this, which is arrow panel.y This is ugly. Plus this? Is that just it? Black, white. We take y and no, we need to subtract, not add. Subtract that same amount. And then we subtract the height divided by 2. But this isn't going to quite line up. We need to just make this 2.65 again. We need to add it in here before. I guess it doesn't matter where we add it in. And then math that for this. I forgot to math that for all these lines. Okay. That's horrible. Let's see what it does. Almost works. So it's about the right spot. In fact, I'm going to take top 5 in a different tree. So we changed this guy, right? So I'm going to go to bananas, top 5, and make it even different. We're just going to stick it way off in the corner and let it not require anything. All right. So clearly the right height. Not quite the right length, or about the right height, not quite the right bottom point. And actually kind of says my 2.65 might not be correct. My 2.65 might be based on the previous size of this. It is. So it should be a third of that, which is only 1. But it's not enough. It's also way too fat. Why is it way too fat? Did I not change the size of this thing? I did not. Okay. Let's update that template. Okay, we're getting there. So these look like they're correctly, let me F11 this so you can see. If this piece in the middle were a little bit longer, it looks like it would line up just right to look really smooth. In this one, not in this one. Well, that's a shame. It's almost like this would be a lot easier if we didn't have the whole thing scaling, which maybe is what we should do. Maybe we should just have it pop to, you know, pick a size, and if it doesn't fit, and say these things should always be 50 units or something. In hindsight, that might have been easier. In hindsight, we might do that next time. Let's try to figure out why these don't line up correctly. Before we just make this math. So this is extension's height. Five to get out of there. Floor of this thing. Get into the button. How big do we set the scale of the panel? We didn't set the scale of the panel at all. The height is It's supposed to fill up the button padding. That's right. Sort of. Oh man, at a right angle. We are rotating it. Okay. So if I am paused here, Let's look at these guys. Panel's very large. It's not really that big it is. The rotation really makes the bounds look very funny. Drawing more pictures. Oh. So the one in the middle is the rotated panel of this arrow, and it's supposed to exactly touch the corners of the buttons, if they were there. And when the button's not there, we need to add the little bit of 5 padding we had. It's down here. And then the button size, the scaled button size times root 2/2 should give us right to the middle, and then we add a little bit, and that should give us past the middle, but it does not. Why does it not? And none of these things have materials. I mean, they're not materials. That means that they are a full rectangle. There's no border or anything like that. Nice 15. My offset negative 2.5. So it's let's add 10. See what it does. I don't think that's the right solution, but I want to see how it lines up. Better, but not right. Make it big. It's close. That actually looks very close, given that this is having this funny aliasing problem, where it, you notice the arrow's a little thicker at the bottom than in the middle. Why would 10 be the right number? That is a question. Well, these things are set to be. I guess 10 is the right number. So minus 15 means it's 10 from one and 5 from the other. No, maybe that should be 5. Hrumph. I'm okay with leaving that for now. I'm going to take one of these talent trees, water balloons, and just drag them out. So that might have 2 talent trees that are much bigger. See how it looks? Okay, again, doesn't quite line up. This looks like our higher one's a little bit too long now. What did Diablo do? I bet they had a material. Some artist drew this and made it line up nicely. Made it overlap. I bet they basically just manually drew every talent tree. I can zoom out of this. Do any of these do an angled requirement without smashing into another thing? That is my question. Oh, so it's kind of slow. I bet they don't. I bet they avoided this entire lineup issue. But not having requirements that work like this. Well, we probably could too. What is this? This one requires one next to it. Madness. Okay, Yep, they just avoided it. Anyway, these look functional. Tooltips work. Can imagine how much talent's in here. I will leave those for now. I'm gonna, whoops, that's not what to do. I'm going to fix these lines of code a little bit. Leave that 10, don't know why it works. We'll talk about next time, I'll think about it before I come back. Should I just set these to a fixed size and, you know, just too bad if you have too many trees that go off the side of your screen over your chat and that sort of thing. Maybe that would have been a much safer way to do this. If I didn't have to put tree scale in every one of these things, it probably would have made this an easier bit of math. Such is life. I learned quite a while ago to not worry too much about spending time writing things that I end up erasing, because that's just, you have to do that to learn how, you know, to learn the things that shouldn't or don't work or could have worked. This is an unreadable pile of math, though. I will yield that. Is that enough to get this into one thing? Not really. Height. This part. Extension, button, height. That still doesn't fit in one. Jeez. Extension, just height. Sure, okay. And this guy. I think this should have been constant somewhere up here. Button, position, size. That's not button grid size. Yeah, like that. Like if the buttons were on a grid, how big is it from one to the next? In fact, I can probably define this way up above. Okay, there's no way there isn't one right here that I can read. Oh, because it's not exactly that. I see. Yep, okay, that's fine. We'll leave it here. And Y adjustment. This thing. And everywhere I have 2.65. I thought this problem where it wasn't quite long enough, but sometimes it was too long. This needs to be a third as big, because I made them a third as wide. So 0.88. All right. Hey, that looks slightly better. Make it bigger, not quite long enough. Who knows? Leave it for now. All right, so a few minutes here. We can deal with one of the other cases. Basically, we're going to do very similar math for no, that's not what I wanted. Oops. Not here. For above and up above left. It's possible I could collapse two of these cases down together, but I didn't really think about that. The one straight above is definitely going to be a very different case. The arrow's going to be a different shape. It's the one above to the left that I need to consider more. It is also conceivable that this entire endeavor didn't need to have talents required of the talents. It feels like it's a meaningful improvement to the system, though, that you would need to, or you'd want, you know, improved fireball talent. That if you don't have fireball, it's you take it, it does nothing. You wouldn't want to let people do that. I've talked before about designer solutions and programmer solutions. Programmers will beat their head against a wall and you know, write very complex things to solve a problem when the actual solution to the actual problem could be solved by just designing the game a little differently. You know, if it's, oh, this is really hard to do, well, let's just do something different that kind of gets the same result for the player. And this is a programmer solution. This is me really trying to make exactly this thing work, and I think I can. It's not always the wrong thing to do, but you know, sometimes you can just avoid that, especially when you're doing things that are smaller and quicker. So above left should be very similar to above right. In fact, I would argue that putting together almost feels nice, except for we're gonna have a bunch of pluses where minuses are, and have to keep multiplying in xdiff. I guess that's okay. Let's figure out what we need to do to this. So I'm gonna turn this into not equals, and then just like that. Okay. So first thing is the height is correct, the rotation angle. Use that. So it's -1, it's above right. Not equal to 0, sorry. If it's -1, it should be up to the right, +1 up to the left. The y coordinate is correct, the height is correct, x is not. X needs to be plus or minus, again. So we're going to do minus blank blah. It looks like, I didn't actually process this before. It looks like x and y don't have to be integers, but height do. Height does. So maybe I could use that to make this, maybe I take the math.floor off here, and it'll look a little bit smoother. That might help here. All right, so the x position needed to be the other side. If this was, so it used to be -1, so if it's -1, this becomes plus again. Otherwise, oh, this, this doesn't work. Oof. Button grid size, we're going to find that way out here. Where do we define these things? Tree scale, oh, after this guy. Okay. That's fine, because this guy, the problem is we start on the left side of the thing, so we have to bias that. So, whoops, so x is plus that. So we take the position of the panel, we add tree scale plus button size over 2, and then we subtract xdiff times our fancy new variable. That's very helpful. I believe actually I have a 2.0 here as well. Yes. All right, that should hopefully work. And then the extensions are going to be wrong. Let's see how this looks. Well, not bad. This, I believe, is an extension to this piece. I believe it's on the wrong side, but otherwise this looks pretty good. Sweet. So again, down here, x coordinate, arrow panel dot x plus, all we need to do is multiply in xdiff here, and turn it to a minus, and look at that. And they even kind of line up. It's pretty close. That is incredible. Looks like the diagonal piece is not long enough. So my magic number 10, where I have no idea why this ended up being longer than 10. If I make it 11. Yep. Okay. I'll take it. This looks really good. This came out looking way better than I expected, given that. And you notice that the arrows now line up now that I'm not setting them to be integers. That is, this one doesn't quite line up. These do. Sweet. Okay, we'll leave it as is. Put a comment here. 11 is a magic number. Don't know why it works. It's not a comment you like leaving in your scripts, but sometimes you gotta. Alright, so next time we need to do the direct up arrow, which should be the easiest of the three, for what it's worth. I did this hard case first. This should be the easiest. Then we need to actually handle a tick function that updates enabled and disabled. We already have a handler for that. We might have to do some styling. Next time we might actually do a moderate amount of time not doing Lua, just styling things and making them look better, making the disabled state look pretty good if the button state itself is not good enough, because the button, if you remember, the button is only the icon in the middle, not the background. I might need to make this whole thing act like a button. That looks horrible now. If I made it bigger, it was better. Yep. Okay. So that's something. And then we considered the scroll bar. We didn't do that. Maybe that's fine. Showing hiding. Okay. Yep. So we actually make it do things. We show it and hide at the right time. We send data to the server and try to take the talents. And yeah, that's great. We're cooking. This is happening. Round nearest, maybe. Let me look at what you're saying. So I put this outside of I see what you're saying. Putting this inside and try to round to nearest. The problem is it was supposed to be 5, so I'm just, at this point, just kind of guessing numbers. And I could put 10.5 in here. But this was, I don't know. I kind of just guessing numbers. At some point, if it looks good, I'm not going to spend too much time digging. Anyway, thank you for watching. I appreciate your input, Waffles. This is very helpful. I sometimes worry that when I'm digging into programming and math for a while, people are just kind of droning out, or I guess I'm droning and they're zoning out. Anyway, catch you again next time.